So I have the recording started, and Gregor, I'll just pass it right over to you to start and tell us what you want to talk about and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Gregor Brunner. I'm originally from Austria, but moved to Switzerland 2 years ago, and I basically have a small team of Power BI nerds, and we are mostly doing development, but also some consulting and trainings. And we have been building this external tool for Power BI called Measure Killer. We started about 6 months ago, and I'm just gonna share my screen. So it's basically an external tool for Power BI, like I said, and it does some things that other external tools are doing as well. But it's pretty good already, I would say now, and doing more things than maybe some other tools out there. And basically, the main things are deleting unused measures and columns. And I will also demonstrate that. And it's also giving you a really um, uh, in-depth analysis of your report. So it's telling you all the artifacts, where they're used, how they're used, all these things in a nice Excel. And the latest function that we're building out is basically to clean up your Power BI tenant, to optimize it a little bit in terms of refresh times, to make the data sets smaller, so to speak. And there's also some XMLA capabilities there, so you don't need to download everything. That's also where we're actually trying to charge people for, So we're also looking at some bigger companies who might want to pay for this tool. So this XMLA thing is basically one of the paid features, but most of the features are free to use. And yeah, so but that's basically the main thing. And I'm just gonna go down here to the versioning. So we have been really pushing out versions almost every couple of weeks. And this latest one now, 0.91, we fixed some stuff, and this is really a good version now that is out. And I will basically demonstrate everything today in this version. And it's also in the Microsoft Store. So we really tried to make it very accessible and that everybody has a way of getting it. And you can either download it from our website or get it from the Microsoft Store directly. The only trouble we have had is that some antiviruses flagged it. For example, one version of McAfee, you would have to whitelist the exe file in order to use it. But for most antiviruses, it's fine, but some are kind of crazy, and they say it has some kind of Trojan inside it or something, which is, yeah. But we're trying to deal with this. We're trying to get more information from the antivirus providers to make sure we can fix this somehow, because of course it's annoying to some people. Yeah, please check. It would be really good. I actually ended up testing it with a lot of antiviruses, even with this Virus Total website where you can just upload it. It does some things like connecting to your XMLA, of course, and we're not really sure where the problem might be. But yeah, if you whitelist it, it will be fine. But feel free to test it and let us know. So basically it has three functions, right? And if you have questions, guys, please just unmute yourself and go ahead, because like I said, I'm not really the guy who wants to talk for 45 minutes all by himself. So we can really make this interactive, since we're also a small group, maybe. Like I said, we have three functions. One, the main thing is basically analyzing a single report or data set. And if I do that, it's basically opening the main window of Measure Killer. And maybe I can actually close this. It's opening the main window of Measure Killer, and it's basically I already have Power BI open, so I have some sales sample report open here, and I can also launch Measure Killer from within the external tools, or just do it like this here, and then I can find the port of the file I have open. If you have multiple files open, then you will have to either figure out which port the right one is, or like I said, you can open Measure Killer from within here, and then it will pre-select it. Actually, I can show it to you. And then it will basically pre-select the port. And that way, though, you cannot change it anymore. So it's basically hard coded into here, as you can see. There's nothing to do anymore. Yeah, so I open it. I have my sales report. I have some measures here, right? I have some tables, some columns, stuff like this. And now I just want to analyze this and see what Measure Killer is going to do with it. So I click on execute. And then it basically goes to it's creating a list of all the reports I opened last. So we still have to select the file. For architectural reasons, we need to select the port and the PBIX file. Because we're analyzing the model and the report layout. So that's why we need those two things, and it's not possible to do it in one go. But yeah, it's pre-selecting the last one you open, so you can just click on run. And now it's just double checking if you really selected this file, because we had some people who had trouble with that. And I click on yes, and now you can see it's running through. So it's analyzing everything. You can see that it's going through my artifacts, my measures here. It's going through the tables. And at the end, it's done. I can close this window. And now I get the main window of Measure Killer, basically, where I can see all artifacts here in a table. And you can also see that some of them have this plus, like kind of a drill down, like in Power BI. That's when Measure Killer is thinking that maybe I'm using this multiple times. So I would get one row for every area that Measure Killer is finding this artifact to be used. And if it's just if there's no drill down, then it says basically it's not used. So those are the red highlighted rows here. Those are my unused artifacts, and it could be a measure or a column. Yeah, so here we also have this differentiation, the measure or column. We can also see which table it belongs to. Here we can see the size in bytes, similar to DAX Studio. So if I sort by this has order number has 1.1 megabytes approximately, and it's not used, this column, right? So that's already something that I learned, and maybe I want to go with the most costly columns first. I can also click here, and then I would see only the not used artifacts, because maybe, yeah, the used ones, they're fine, right? And I just want to look at the unused ones, and now again, I can basically sort here. There's also this way to search for something. If you really have a lot of artifacts, maybe it makes sense you want to search for a table. Searching for a report in this, of course, in this situation doesn't make sense. But we also have the option to analyze shared data sets and thin reports, right? So in that case, I can analyze multiple reports connected to a centralized data set at one time. And then maybe I want to search for a report. I can also reset the table, then it's basically going back to its original state. And yeah, for example, I don't know, this order quantity, now I can see used in revenue measure, used in costs measure. And that's basically the first information that you get through this table. Yeah. And then we have those two buttons where I can say, okay, I want to kill my unused measures. And then I can either do all, I can select measures. So for example, I can say, okay, I want to get rid of those two. Or I want to create a C# script to do this in Tabular Editor. It's up to you. I will just create it here, and then you can click on copy here, put it in your notepad, or directly into Tabular Editor and do with it whatever you want. So we just want to give people this flexibility also to maybe do this somewhere else or make it part of another script or whatever. So that's about measures. If you want to get rid of a measure, maybe we can just show this quickly. So my unused measures are year-to-date costs, profit, and revenue. So basically those three here. Apparently they're not used in this report. And now I can just say, okay, I want to select measures to kill. Where is this? Select measures to kill. I want to get rid of maybe revenue and costs. Double checking, and I can say yes. And now it's opening a process called tabular killer, and it's basically deleting it from my model. And it works the same way as if you execute the C# script in Tabular Editor, and then basically you still have, so it's already gone, as we can see here. Only this profit is left. So it's basically automatically syncing this to the model, but it's not saving your file. So if you made something here, then basically it's you can still get out of it by just closing the file and not saving it. But if you delete something, like if you delete a measure like this, there's just no way to basically get it back. Just like executing in Tabular Editor, I think you can also not undo this. And then it's basically running this thing again here. And then in the end, we can see that we have this text here that it says, okay, this measure and this measure were killed. And it also refreshes this table so that now I can also see the latest version again, meaning only year-to-date profit, exactly like it is here. So it's kind of synced with Power BI in that sense. Yeah. Any questions at this point?
Well, no, so far so good. Just Donald and Daryl are both trying to install it. It looks like they've been successfully able to install if they use the store. And I think it's Donald said he had to go up to the admin password, so maybe that works better for people.
Yeah.
But this is good. It seems like when you choose to go ahead and get rid of them, it automatically applies it. Unlike with Tabular Editor, if you ran that script, you could run the script, but then also save back, right? It's almost like a two-step. It seems like you're doing that one, right?
Yeah, because I mean, what else? I mean, there's no point, right? I mean, why?
Yeah.
For us at least.
Yeah. How many clicks can you make me hit first?
Exactly.
Yeah. I see somebody has their hands up. Klaus,
Yeah,
go
Klaus
ahead.
is actually my colleague. He was
Okay.
also instrumental in developing this tool, and I think maybe you want to answer one of those questions, right, Klaus?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Donald asked if it is possible to analyze the results in Excel. And I think it would be interesting to show the document results part.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
That's where we can generate, and like I said, an Excel sheet. It's basically this part here to analyzing reports. It's creating an Excel file, and there's two ways, two reports. I prefer this row by row. There we have basically for every usage, like I'm using this column in this measure, I get one row. The clustered one is basically for every artifact. It tells you maybe then in one column used here, here. And it's concatenating all of these things. So I think the row by row is better. I just want to show this. MK testing, MK output. So that's what it's just generated. And let's take a look here. So yeah, here you can see, for example, that my revenue measure is used in multiple areas. Just gonna apply the filters maybe here, just so we can narrow it down a little bit. So if I go to revenue, I can see that this is a measure. And every row, I can also see the DAX expression, which might be handy for some people, I think. We would have column size here as well, but I guess for measures it doesn't make sense, right? And then I can see that revenue is also referenced in the profit measure. It's also referenced in the profit margin measure, and it's used on various visuals, and it's used here in some tooltip. I can even find the type of visual it is used on. I can see there's also this visual ID, which is like unique identifier. I can see which report it is. Yeah, I can see all kinds of things basically. I can also, of course, see the page of the report page and visual type. That's how narrow we can get it down to find where an artifact is used. This visual ID, I don't know exactly how we can use this. It's for us, it's like a unique identifier, so we can count that and see basically how often it is used. But not really sure if you can just find this somehow in Power BI. That's still a kind of unknown to us. But this is the Excel you're getting, and yeah, you can go through all your artifacts basically, and we'll find out where this thing here, we have the column size, right, for age, since this is a column in the customers table. And you can also see the things that are not used, of course. So you have here this no and yes and no, if it's used or not. And yeah, that's basically it.
So would you use this as, like you're going to do your cleanup, you're going to remove a bunch of things like we already demoed. Would you envision that you want to save something like this Excel file first as almost a log or a backup, right? It's obviously not a backup to just kind of reproduce it, but if
Right.
you deleted something, it feels to me like you have enough information in here
Yeah.
that you could pretty much know to recreate it, right?
So the main risk, let's talk about risk, like what can go wrong, right? Killing the measures or removing the measures is kind of a risk. And that I would basically say, okay, either you don't save your file and you see what happens, right? Like you can remove them. I remove them here, but I can still get out of here if something were to break down. The other thing is the columns, which probably has a bigger benefit to remove those. Here, we're creating an M script. So here you will get a script which is basically copying your old query and then adding one step to remove at the end, one step at the end to remove the unused columns. So here you need to do this manually. So I have to copy this text. And maybe actually something I forgot here is just already here, when you want to select a table, it will only suggest the tables that that have columns to be removed, of course, right? And they are sorted by the sum of the storage that you can save if you remove all those columns.
Okay.
So this one has, yeah, basically 1.1 megabytes. So it's only, I guess, those two columns, and this one has almost nothing, and this one has more than a megabyte. So you can go with the biggest one, the biggest savings here, copy it, go to Power BI, right? Go to the advanced editor, and go into which one was it? F sales main. Just go here, copy paste. It's only adding this step. And then that way you can go back, right? You just always remove this step and you'll be good again. Yeah. And then of course you can let it run. And That's how the removing columns work. So it's not automatic. We tried that, but it's it's not possible.
Yeah, it could overlay it, right? The next time you so the way you did it, it seems to be a good approach, right? And I kind of like it because the way you document it by the
Yeah,
name and
right.
everything, right? It makes a lot of sense. I do like that.
And in a previous session, somebody said, well, it's okay, but it's not efficient. And I never thought about this before. He said, why don't you do it at the beginning, right? Like if you have a SQL database, well, remove it first, right? Or only select the things that you really need. And at the point when we built this, we didn't really think about it that way. But maybe that would be something for the future. But it's also kind of risky because we might do something with it during the transformations. But for now, we're doing it at the end. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that you'll have much of a problem, right? Because as I mentioned, this group we're starting to go through the 30 days of folding that Alex Powers put together. And even in his first video, what he talks about is remove the columns at the end, because
Oh, really?
putting it too early could actually break folding. So what would be
Oh.
interesting, and I don't know that you're connected to a SQL database here, but if you're
No,
doing it
no.
against a SQL database, what I would just try is see if you right click on it and it says view native query, it's folding.
Right.
Go ahead, copy your script back in. I would be willing to bet it's still going to fold. Right now, if something else broke folding in between that, then it's not the removed columns, and maybe
Yeah.
you could get it to fold by moving what those steps up, but
Yeah.
I doubt your programmatic. You have to have a lot of intelligence programmatically to figure that out. So
yeah, just if folding breaks somewhere in the middle, right, and then I remove them at the end, then maybe I would lose some performance there. But you will know which columns we're talking about anyway. So, but I just thought it's an interesting thought. Just yeah, was good. Yeah, so that's a manual process. As you can see, for every table, at least you have to do it yourself, but I think it's manageable. Yeah. So those are the main functions, I would say. We also have this ugly chart, as we call it, where it shows you basically how many columns and measures you have, and if how many used and unused you have, just in comparison. This is, of course, nothing like Power BI in terms of visualization, but yeah, it gets the job done. And yeah, so this is the main thing for a single report, I would say. Yeah, what you can do with Measure Killer. Of course, yeah, you can also generate this other Excel file, which you can try it out. It's almost the same, just the structure is a little different. But what is more interesting, I would say, is the shared data sets. Because what we saw now, I think Measure Killer is good, but also other tools maybe can do this. We have almost no limitations in terms of what is not working. And that's, I think, something we're quite proud of, that the only thing that you have to avoid is if you have a column named title, then it will appear as used. And all so if one of the artifacts in that table where you have this title column is used, if any other artifact is used, it will tell you that title is used as well. That's the only real limitation we have. And I think it's manageable. So you don't have to really watch out for some things being wrongly flagged as unused. That's what we try to avoid, to tell you that it's unused, even though it is used, and then you're deleting something and breaking stuff. And this is the other way around. And for us, it's more acceptable to have those kind of limitations. But yeah, those are the only things that we have identified as not working as of now. So you can't delete calculated columns. And also if you nest the measures, like you reference measures in other measures and nowhere else, then it will take maybe 2 or even 3 runs of Measure Killer for you to get rid of those. But yeah, that's probably also quite specific. And then of course local date tables, hopefully nobody or most people are not using those, but we tag them as used automatically because we don't even wanna mess with those and do anything there. The normal
You
date
ought to
tables.
have a big red box that comes up that says, "Go turn this off in your options."
Exactly. And who knows why it's turned on by default, right?
I know that is such a killer. But so, are you going to be able to demo the shared data
Yes,
set part?
for sure.
Okay, great. Because I
Yes.
know Donald is saying that's important to him as well. So
Should we do the offline version? So that is part of the free Measure Killer, and this is part of the paid thing. Here you need to have all files on your machine, and here you only need to have the thin files on your machine. You can keep the data set in the service.
let's do the local. I think that would be more
Yeah.
interesting for
Okay.
people, and that
Cool.
hopefully that makes sense, right? You'd have to have all the files in I'm assuming
Yeah.
a particular place and stuff.
So in our case, we have this weather data set, and then we have some reports. It's kind of cool. We have some temperature report. I guess there's nothing in Texas, but we have Douglas, wherever that is. And yeah, so this is feeding or getting data directly from this weather data set. Now I'm showing it in the service, but I have downloaded those. So those are my 3 thin files. And then here is the weather dataset. And now I need to close this because this is the sales report. And I'm going to open the weather dataset. So I need to have the dataset open because here it says, yeah, open the PBX file of the dataset. Now I'm going to do refresh to get the correct port. Maybe actually, let me just make sure this is correct. Yeah, okay. So I have the port of this data set now. Now I can click on next. And now what I need to do is I need to select the path of the data set first. So I also have to do this again. Yeah, like I said, always port and the report files. And as you can see also as the ID, it's throwing me data set. So that's the first thing I select. It's assuming or it's looking for the data set. And now I can add the thin files. So I can either add them one by one. 1 second, I think I have 1 second. I just gotta start this again. Yeah, because it had the different port. I think maybe that's something we need to take a look at. Okay, so I'm selecting the data set, and now I can select the thin reports either one by one, or I can just get everything from a folder. Like I have my live reports here, and now I have this double, so I can basically also get rid of it again. And this is then how it's supposed to look, right? I have 3 thin reports and my data set, and now I can go to submit. And it's double checking is weather dataset your dataset PBX file. Say yes. And now we can see this main window again. And it's just confirming that this is the dataset. Here are the thin files. And now I can just go to execute. And then it's running through all of them. And as you can see now, we have different values here for the report. So I have all the artifacts from the dataset, but then also we have some measures that only exist in the thin files. And it's also telling me where I'm using those. So here, for example, this rain probability tooltip, is used on a clustered column chart on the tooltip page of this rain report. And yeah, I mean, I cannot actually I can get rid of the measures here, but for XMLA that's not possible. Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to say. But here I can do it because I have it open locally, right? And yeah, that's basically how it looks. It's showing you everything. You can see, of course, if it's used or not. And that way, I mean, the main case for this, I guess, is to eliminate stuff in the data set, right? The things that are not used in any of the thin reports, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, let me. I could tell you a use case I could think of off the top of my head, right? Because we tend to separate always, right? Even if we're going into the same workspace for reports that we produce, because we always find we're going to produce another report later on.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also give the people that are true report developers the ability to produce their own measures with within the thin report. And we have a naming standard, right? So we say, we get this is going to add a little more work to you, but you have to start your measure with the underscore,
Mm-hmm.
so that if we want to migrate it to the main model, we can, and we can name it without the underscore. We won't have collisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I thought of right away was I could open this and because we store them all in one place too. So I could open all of the report, and it feels like I could even do a quick check to say, did you even follow my naming convention? Right? Do you have
Yes.
anything? Right? So a quick code review on
Yeah.
it. It solves that part of a problem. And then also ones that they may have put together that something else they're no longer using it type of thing. Or in the migration process, we're able to pull out what the code was in the thin report, get it in the main model, and then once they do actually make the change, this would also tell us they're ready to delete it out of the thin report. So I could see that in a workflow, you know, code review process, or at least how we're doing stuff. Have you do you, have you heard of any workflow like that? I guess.
I mean, I think that's a good one for sure. We thought about it more in the sense to delete or get rid of artifacts in the dataset,
Mhm.
because as soon as you have thin reports connected to it, you'll have a really hard time to figure out what you still use somewhere and what not.
Mhm.
Especially
Yeah.
if you have suddenly, I don't know, 50 pages, right? In
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
thin
I
files.
could I could tell you for sure for some reports we had to put together last quarter that we had to do it on a very tight schedule, and people didn't know what they needed. We threw a lot of columns into the data set because there's
Yeah.
not a lot of rows. And for being able to come back and start cleaning it up and say, like, what columns can we potentially remove?
Right.
It is and like I said, connecting to the thin reports, because that's always been the challenge, right? Do we know
Mm,
what's used with individuals? So I mean, that's probably something I'm going to go out and test and
sure.
everything.
Klaus has his hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add something because, of course, using a shared data set, analyzing a shared data set in the local machine, will be able to, I mean, Measure Killer, of course, will be able to kill or remove the unused measures, but only in the data set.
Yeah.
For example,
Okay.
if that rain probability for tooltip
Yeah.
measure was unused, we could not delete it because it's kind of this measure is saved in the layout of the report, the
Right.
Yeah.
Power
Right.
BI file. So it doesn't work exactly like the measures on the data set. So we can only select the unused measures of the original data set that wants to make that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But do you at least know the measure exists in the thin report and it's not being used, even if you can't delete it?
Yeah, you
Yes.
see here, we know that it's used, and we can see where in the thin reports it's used, right? So this is part of the rain report. So we can see that, but of course, yeah, we cannot delete it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I think because, like you said, there's a bunch of other tools that have started doing some things like this, and I think you're the first I've seen the demo on of trying to solve that part of the problem. I don't know if you know Mike Carlo, the guys from Explicit Measures podcast. I could have sworn I heard this come up on a podcast within the last week or so, and I know Donald's usually on those. Did did you remember them mentioning something like this doesn't exist, or this is a challenge that still needs to be addressed? And calling on Donald, and he may not.
I don't
be
know if
there.
I remember or not, but I mean, this is something that I don't remember seeing in other tools before, being able to see the other reports. So I
I
don't
would
think
be
anything
surprised because we also did a pretty comprehensive check, and we tested all the tools out there. But of course, yeah, you never know. Maybe you missed something. But for me or for us, this analyzing the shared data set was really I thought only if we can pull this off, then we actually have a tool that is really contributing something, and it is working. So that's really good, and we're just looking for people to test it also because it's really new. We just released this version last week, and now we're going more into the direction of enterprise tenants to do things when you don't have the files on your machine, maybe when you cannot even download the data set, things like this. That's the direction we're trying to go into now. Yeah.
Can I add something as well?
Sure.
We are really excited. Of course, on the local machine is more simple. You have to select the data set and select all the thin/live reports. But now with the XMLA version, we're planning on doing everything automatic. So you just have to select the data set. We will pre-generate all of the workspaces that the user has access to, and then you just have to select the data set in the workspace you want, and we will generate the lineage and get the reports without downloading it, only using REST API. This is
exactly.
Okay.
Because right now, yeah, we have this offline version, and there you need to have this, right? You need to have the data set and all the files. But then now with XMLA, and that is already working, you can just specify the workspace name, and then we can test this. So I click on connect. Now it's triggering the login, and I'm just gonna log in here. And now it's searching through this workspace for the data sets. I can select my weather data set here, and I click on next. And now at this point, I don't need to have the data set anymore. So I can only select the thin reports, but I still need to have them on my machine as of now.
Okay.
And then I can click on submit, and then it's basically the same thing as before, but I don't need to have the data set. And like Klaus said, the next step would be that we're calling the REST API. We're getting a list of all the workspaces, list of all the reports and data sets, building this lineage within Measure Killer. And then you don't need to have the thin files anymore. And it's giving you maybe this massive option to go through. I want to analyze this workspace, and in those workspaces, I want to analyze those 5 data sets. And then it will pull all the report layouts from all the reports connected to those 5 data sets, and will tell you, hey, here you have the maximum benefit, or you're wasting 500 megabytes here, and you don't even need it, for example.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and make an assumption that the data set that's up on the workspace doesn't really have to come from a PBIX file, right? Like if I manage my data sets out of tabular editor, right, and publish it through, maybe we could call that the old school way, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to you because you're just connecting to that via XMLA to get all the metadata anyways, right?
We haven't tested it for all the cases yet. I cannot say, but I assume it will work. But analysis services, for example, and yeah, Azure and those things we have not really tested anything yet. So I don't know. We have to. You can feel free to go for it and let me know.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking making it to the endpoint that's the Azure Analysis Services or an on-prem. What I'm still thinking the endpoint is the Power BI service, right? But I don't publish that via a PBIX file, right? I keep right, especially since Microsoft just released the migration tool, right? There's a lot of people migrating from AAS over, right? And I'm just like myself, I'm going to continue maintaining that .bim file. But up on the service, when you're connecting through XMLA, you're just getting the normal, I guess it's probably either the Tom objects or the other scripting. And so you're seeing it the same way. I would assume it would work, which is great, Yeah.
Klaus?
Kevin, thank you for your question. And yeah, it's supposed to work. I'm just connecting to the tabular model. So we haven't tested, as Gregor said, but it's supposed to work because there is no difference for measure killer for that. Only, of course, the live reports then you have to have, because I mean, measure killer, of course. We need to read the layout itself and all of the visuals and those small elements.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's the direction we're trying to build it, because we have seen some, bigger companies, bigger organizations who have those massive data sets and who are, it takes forever to refresh, and they're just scared of deleting stuff there, and it's impossible to manage. And since we already have all these capabilities, we thought, hey, why not go into this direction? And then maybe also we can get some people paying for Measure Killer to support the development in the future,
Yeah, I have a client that's definitely in that use case, and especially once I migrate them from AAS to premium, right? It seems that it's going to start opening that door. And then just to circle back to the Donald's question, right? When he was talking analyze in Excel, what I think he was talking about is if you had Excel workbooks that are connected to the data set that's producing the pivot table, right? And I don't know that you're, really going to be able to get from that, right? Because that tends, Excel is still connecting to it as if it's a MDX or a multi-dimensional cube and sending MDX over to it.
No idea.
Yeah.
The only way to do that is going through the logs. If you went through the query logs, you could see the text of the queries, but not easy.
Yeah, because from the thin files we're getting only this report layout, right? And that's really what is telling us where stuff is used. And for Excel, I have no idea what we can get out of it and find what is in there. Yeah, but maybe at some point, you don't know.
Right. Did we hit the end of your presentation? I know we kind of interrupted you a couple of times.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was the last thing I wanted to show. I mean, this works exactly the same, so I can just let it run. Now it's just doing XMLA. And there it's just important to know that while we're connecting to the data set, we're only pulling the metadata, right? So we're only pulling the model. We're not looking at any actual data. So that is one thing. And also we only need XMLA read because we're not writing anything. So that's also maybe something to know. And of course, you need to have Power BI Premium, but that's obvious, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And that to me is where the generating the C# scripts come in, because that's what you would want to do, is generate those C# scripts for tabular editor, and then assuming you're maintaining, you know, your data set that is not in a PBIX file out of tabular editor. It's like you said, it kind of allows you to run it again right away, you know, and make all those changes. Go ahead, you can answer that if you want.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I actually have premium per user, so there's no difference, because there's no difference in terms of the XMLA capabilities. So you can, of course, let this run in a PPU workspace. Yeah, I think.
Great.
Do you, maybe Klaus, you also have anything to share, or did we miss any questions? I'm not sure.
No, I think that's everything.
Okay.
Just use it, and please send us messages so we can improve, because it's hard to test,
website,
right?
Exactly. On our
We don't
website, we
have-
have this blog section, and on the blog, it's pretty much on top, Measure Killer feedback. That's where we're collecting all the feedback. So if you run into any problems with your antivirus, or you have any other problems that make it impossible to use, let us know. We'll try to fix this as soon as possible. But I think for now we have a good version, and the stuff is working. And but yeah, we're still, you know, it's a continuous process, like a good Power BI report, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Gregor, I hadn't done any homework at all prior to this meetup, so I didn't even know this thing existed. It was just me seeing Kevin doing something, and my default view, if Kevin's doing something, I'm paying attention. So I did shoot you like I do want to kick the tires on this and like start to have some opinions. Right now I don't. It looks cool. I will. I just sent you a meeting invite via LinkedIn, so maybe next week or the week after I get a chance to bang around on it. But it looks cool. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think you got interest from a few people here that are definitely going to look at it and everything. So hopefully you'll get some good feedback. I know it'll probably be on my list over my Christmas break. So, and then something if I go back to the client and say, hey, I've looked at this, I like it, and see if they want to look into it more.
Yeah,
Great.
I mean, like I said, the main functions are free to use, but then we're trying to charge the bigger customers, especially for support, and also this XMLA thing is kind of a paid feature. But yeah.
Yeah. Have you come up with what the pricing model, and if you don't want it on recording, you're welcome not to answer that until I stop.
It's on the website. I just
Okay.
didn't want to throw the whole sales pitch, you know.
Okay, I'll look at it there.
Yeah. Just if you're interested, look at it. But I think yeah, everybody can see it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not that much. Cool.
Great. Anything else before we wrap it up, everybody? Any other questions, or want to come off mute and thank them for the presentation and the information? All right. A couple claps and a couple thank yous. Well, we really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.